Which is supposed to go back to
worshiping Satan.
a Satan worship.
You love worshiping Satan!
There's 90 minutes of teenagers being strangled, stabbed, impaled, chopped up, and mutilated. That's all this movie is.
We got a Halloween candy warning tonight. After a scare in Clinton over the weekend, candy possibly tampered with. Box had been opened, then glued shut. So we got everything you need to look out for tonight, so your Halloween is a treat and not a trick.
Have you experienced the Mandela Effect? In this video, we will go over a variety of Mandela effects being discussed online. I understand some people may know all the Mandela effects, but they may be new to other viewers. I do my best to research new information and at least entertain people who may already know the ones mentioned. We all have embarrassing moments. Help us not have one by subscribing to the channel.
Yes, I want Fred.
Dracula, Wolfman, and the Mummy, all iconic universal horror icons. The first Mandela Effect has us looking at one of the most memorable monsters, Frankenstein's monster to be exact. Many people recall the monster having bolts on his neck, but when you look at the original monster, he had electrodes on his neck and not bolts.
What I remember is two bolts with big heads and washers near the neck. What is there now is not really bolts, though.
I was able to find this Halloween costume that displays bolts on the monster's head. And when looking at the one in Monster Squad, there are no bolts or electrodes of any kind. And Frankenberry is doing his own thing.
Want a hanky, Frankie?
Thanks. And how about some wonderful Frankenberry cereal?
As I continued looking at different Frankenstein monsters, I found Herman Munster from the television show The Munsters. He did have bolts and washers, much like the ones remembered. But what do you remember being on the neck of the Frankenstein's monster? What do you recall?
Go downstairs. I have a surprise for you.
In 1992, the horror fantasy film Candyman would be released, based on the short story The Forbidden by Clive Barker, known for creating the Hellbound Heart, which inspired the Hellraiser films.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Candyman was a crowbar-armed maniac summoned by saying his name into the mirror.
Candyman.
But how many times would you have to say his name? This is where the Mandela Effect comes into play, because people remember a person having to say his name 3 times, much like Beetlejuice or Bloody Mary. But in the movie, you need to say his name 5 times for him to appear.
For some background, Candyman is a horror movie from the 90s in which saying the name of a supernatural monster, Candyman, into a mirror a specific amount of times will summon him, and he will kill you. There were also several sequels along the same lines. Now, as a kid, I was addicted to this movie. It scared the living out of me. During sleepovers, my friends and I would dare each other to go into the bathroom and summon Candyman. As I remember it, you have to say Candyman 3 times in the mirror, and turn the lights out for him to come. Today, while surfing Hulu, I noticed Candyman as one of the movie options. It has the tagline, "We dare you to say his name 5 times." This is the first I've ever heard that you had to say 5 times, and I watched this movie hundreds of times in the 90s.
Are people getting Bloody Mary mixed up with the Candyman? Or is something more mysterious happening here? Let's talk about it down in the comments below. There's no doubt that witches are known for flying around on brooms and hanging out with black cats. But this Mandela Effect deals with how they were executed during the Salem witch trials of 1692. In the Rob Zombie film Lords of Salem, we see witches being burned at the stake. But the truth is, no witches were burned in the United States of America. All the people accused of witchcraft were hung and not burned alive. Oh, and there was Giles Corey, who was crushed by heavy stones being placed on top of him. The women who were burned at the stake, as we imagine, was done in Europe, with the final witch being burned in Switzerland in 1782. The next Mandela Effect has to do with the burnt psychopath hidden in our dreams. Many people recall Freddy Krueger's sweater having red and black stripes, but now the stripes have changed to red and green. When looking at collections of Freddy action figures, sometimes it does look like the color is black and not green. This also happens with images online, and even sometimes in the films. I then found this Wes Craven interview where he shares why he chose the sweater and those colors for Freddy.
So I wanted him to have something instantly recognizable, so gave him a sweater with stripes and made them that sort of shade of green and red that are hard on the eye.
I do find my eyes having a hard time when looking at videos where people recreate the horror icon sweater. This yarn, for instance, does not look like it's green to me.
This green is pretty green to go with it.
And yet, sometimes it does. Also with green paint. Just looks black to me. Nevertheless, I have always known it to be a Christmas sweater, but let me know what you remember it being. Green or black?
Make your choice.
When it comes to the Saw franchise, they have only scratched the surface of the many ways to torture a human being. These contraptions are referred to as games, and each one is created by the mastermind Jigsaw. The Mandela Effect deals with the puppet Billy and what it says in the Saw movies before the game begins. Many people recall the phrase, "Do you want to play a game?" asking the captured victims if they want to participate, but the actual line is, "I want to play a game," insisting that they participate in the deadly challenge. One of the worst ones being the pit of syringes. Let me know what line you remember being said and what was the most brutal game in the Saw films down below.
I want to play a game.
Also, if you made it this far, I want to say thank you. I make these videos by myself and they take a lot of time, so I do appreciate you watching. And if you are not yet subscribed, please hang out more often by clicking that red subscribe button for future content.
Now back to the show.
When it comes to the ultimate slasher, many people would choose Jason Voorhees. His iconic look and persona immediately makes him memorable. Many people recall Jason having a stoic presence and taking his time while stalking his next victim. No matter how fast they ran, he would always catch up to them by just walking. When they rebooted the series with the 2009 film, many people were upset at the fact they made the once slow stalker now a marathon maniac. Why would they make Jason run in this rebooted project? Well, that's because Jason does run in the previous films. He runs in Part 2, Part 3, and Part 4. You just got Mandela! Thank you for watching, and don't forget to send the like button to an alternate universe, and let me know down below if any of these Mandela effects made you question your reality, and could we be living in a simulation?